Bismillahir-Rahman-Rahim.
Kitab-ul-Taqdeer.
Book of Destiny. By G.
A. Parwez. Translated by Khalid M. Sayyed. The Law of Returns. Chapter 4.
As it has been stated, the physical universe operates on the basic principle of cause and effect. Another basic principle is the uniformity of nature, which means that the law of cause and effect applies uniformly to the entire universe. In other words, a cause will create exactly the same effect whenever and wherever the conditional factors are identical. In the social world of humans, this is known as the law of returns. The two levels of human life.
Man's life has two levels or aspects.
One is physical, just as the rest of the universe, subject to the physical laws of nature. For instance, humans reproduce like other animals and the elements affect them similarly in ingestion, digestion, excretion, sleep, wakefulness, illness, health, procreation, death, etc.
A human being even has the basic animalistic instincts like self-preservation, self-aggression and self-reproduction. Then there is a higher level of human life manifested not in the body but in the human personality. It is not subject to physical laws. Nonetheless, it has a different code of law called permanent values.
Values deal with honesty, truthfulness, standards of good or bad and right or wrong.
These values are reflected in what is called human character. Animals have behavior. Man has character, too.
Physical laws of the universe can be discovered through observation and experimentation. Permanent values, however, come to man only through divine revelation and are now preserved in the Quran. These values have their own set of laws. Action and result. Just as cause and effect in the physical world. This is known as the universal law of returns. The characteristic of willful choice, unique to man, is actually a trait of the human personality, which flourishes by adhering to permanent values and withers away by violating them. By the way, a person with a developed personality is strong of will. A developed personality lives even after the body's death.
That is life in the hereafter. Thus, permanent values work on man's personality just as physical laws do on his body.
The law of cause and effect in both domains are natural and divine. Three categories of laws.
Human life is governed by these categories of laws.
1.
Physical.
Laws of physics, chemistry, biology, etc. governing the human body. 2. Social laws enacted by government, society.
3. Permanent values. Moral and ethical laws.
Affecting the human personality. All the three areas deem a person responsible
for his/her action and the results thereof.
In I and E, it may happen that one has to face consequences of someone else's actions.
For example, someone drowns in a river because somebody pushes one off a bridge.
Or the bridge gives way because of faulty workmanship.
Famine strikes because of bad administration.
Floods ravage an area.
Or war creates havoc, etc. In E, however, every person bears consequences of one's own action, even those affecting one's personality. This is known as that person's record of deeds. The Quran holds man responsible for all actions, individual or collective. It doesn't recognize any action in any of the three categories as being the responsibility of fate. Predetermined destiny of man, and not of man himself. Man gets what he works for. Predetermined is the law of returns and not man's actions. This is destiny of Allah, not destiny of man. Man's fate is nothing but the results of his individual and/or collective action. Let me elaborate some of these points. 1.
Your destiny is what you do.
2.
20. The Quran presents the basic principle in this regard, saying, whoever commits wrong,
bad deeds surrounding himself with his mistakes, they are the people of hellfire. Their hopes will be dashed. On the other hand, those who are convinced and do good, beneficial deeds are the people of paradise. 2.
81-82. Elsewhere it says,
whatever one does, begets full results. 2.
281.
Also in
3. 24, 3. 160, 40. 17. But, an action has to be willful, as is stated in, you will be held responsible only for actions committed by your heart. Well. 2.
225. That is, one is not responsible for a forced action. In my view, this verse alone sufficiently makes evident the Quranic notion that man is created free of will. In Surah Al-An'am, it says,
everyone has the responsibility of one's own actions. No one carries another's burden.
6.
165. This is supported by 17.
15. 35.
18. 39. 7.
53.
38. etc.
In Surah An-Najm, it says, man can get only what he strives for.
53. 39.
Also, man is entitled to what he works for.
20.
15. A just society is the one in which no one's efforts go wasted.
21.
94. And that in which your efforts bear results.
17. 18-21. Like individuals, this law applies to nations as well, your predecessor. Nations of past bore the consequences of what they did, and you will have what you work for.
You will not be queried about their actions.
2. 134. Also, c. 2.
141. This is because the law of returns states,
deeds bring results and responsibility to the doer. S.
2. 286.
People are destroyed by their own actions.
2. 79.
Suffice to say that everyone is mortgaged by his own actions.
74. 38. 2. You get what you do.
9. 82. The laws of returns means each and every action,
right or wrong, produces a reaction. This is of routine occurrence in the physical world, and easy to observe and accept. Everyday occurrences like fire burns if you touch it and water quenches your thirst are evident examples of this.
But, permanent values are a different matter because their consequences are not readily and directly observable. Food satisfies hunger is easier to observe than it is to see how food wrongfully earned damages one's personality. The materialistic concept of life does not believe in permanent values as it does not recognize the existence of the human personality.
The materialists recognize only the social laws enacted by society, government. These laws bear consequences only when the relevant society comes to no actions, and that varies from one society to another. The soaring global crime rate, the present alarming social deterioration all over the world, and the ever-climbing crime rate in all societies are due to one basic reason.
People do not believe in the existence of human personality.
Life to them is the physical life only. But, the Quran has the human personality as the pivot of its philosophy. All actions of
man, individual or collective, produce reactions.
In fact, this is stated as the reason for the existence of this universe.
Allah created the skies and the earth,
the universe,
rightfully to get everyone the result of his actions and to stop all wrongdoing.
45:22. Again, everything in the skies and the earth is
working for Allah so that people who do bad deeds get bad results and people doing good deeds get good results.
53:31.
In Surah Yunus, it is stated that Allah's program of creation, creating all things from nothingness,
Mabda,
and then reshaping them to ever new forms, exists only to get to people convinced of permanent values, the results of their rightful deeds. 10:4. This is repeated in
11:7-18 and 67.
2. Surah Nisa states,
Whoever does wrong shall bear the consequence.
4:123. And whatever on does produces results.
9:82.
9:95. 14. 51. 16. 96-97. 40. 17. Elsewhere, the Quran states,
Everyone shall get the result of one's actions.
34:33. It is repeated in 7:147.
52:16.
56.
24:83.
36. etc. Again, it states, Allah doesn't let go wasted any deed of a doer.
3:197. Also,
Allah never wastes the return of good doers.
12:93-144. The weighing balance. It is to drive this very basic principle home that the Quran has used the simile of a weighing balance.
We shall, on the day of judgment, set up weighing balances and then no one shall be done wrong. 28:47.
People with the good deeds weighing more than the bad ones shall prosper and flourish, the others shall be destroyed.
23:102-103.
Every small bit of human action shall be weighed. 3:16.
34.
3:99.
7-8.
101.
5-6.
Actions shall be weighed and the reading will be given to the concerned to see what they have been doing. 9:94. 9.
105. 10.
23. This reading shall decide if the weighed deserves success because of a developed personality, or failure because of not having developed one's personality. 9:9-10. It is hopefully clear through these Quranic
verses that man is responsible for all his
actions and is not bound by predetermined destiny. Reward or punishment for forced predetermined actions is simply out of the question.
3.
Read your Book of Deeds. 17:33. The principle illustrated by the simile of the weighing balance is elsewhere in the
Quran elicited by the term, Book of Deeds. It says, We have appointed guardians and overseers around man to record all his action.
13:11-50.
18. They are called the exalted writers.
82:11. This record is like an open and clear book.
10:16.
This book is housed in each and every man. Surah Beni Israel states,
Every man's book
of deeds hangs in his neck. It is rolled shut now but will be opened on the day of judgment and the man will be told, Read your book.
It is self-evident for you to take your own account this day.
17:13-14. The list of deeds and actions will not require any witnesses other than the man himself who will frankly admit his mistakes.
75:14.
This is the record about which the Quran says,
We have a book which says nothing but the truth.
23:62. It is this very record which will make the culprit shout in despair,
Oh, if only I was a heap of dust. 78:40.
It should be clear, then, that each and every human action,
even a passing thought or a wrongful glance
19.
produces a result which is recorded according to the law of returns.
Man's book of deeds is blank at birth and he writes in it with his own hand to affect his personality accordingly.
He writes his own destiny. As Iqbal says,
4. If you are good, you are good for your own self.
17. 7.
Result of one man's action cannot be transferred to another. When action is dependent on one's own free will, the resulting consequence cannot be shared or transferred. For instance, you may take or give money, wealth, but cannot transfer to others the healthy results of regular exercise which you do. If you touch fire, only you have to bear the burning.
Similarly, the consequences of one's action on one's personality cannot be transferred to another. Individuality of the human personality.
This exclusiveness is termed as the individuality of the human personality. In Surah Beni Israel, it is stated, "If you do good, it is to your own benefit and the bad deeds are
also
for your own self." 17:7.
Again, in 41:16
it says, "Whoever does good, benefits his own self and whoever does bad only hurts himself."
It also says,
"Your protector is never unfair to people." 41:46. And also in 45:15. Elsewhere, it says, "One who strives for one's own self."
29:6. Surah Yunus states,
O mankind,
surely your defiance of the divine law
will be upon your own self.
You'll bear the consequences. 10:23. Also in 4:111.
Surah Al-An'am says,
You have been shown clear paths by your preserver.
So, whoever keeps his eyes closed will bear the consequences on his own self. 6:105. It is repeated elsewhere, O mankind, you have received the truth from your preserver.
So, whoever chooses the right path shall beneficial from it while whoever goes astray will bear the loss. 10:108. Also in 17:15, 40, 44, 31, 12.
Another important point in this regard is that
the consequences affecting the personality of a free-willed man stay forever and cannot be erased by another man. For example, it says,
no one can help anyone through recommendation or bribe or otherwise.
2:48. 133.
It is not commercial.
Also it says,
results of deeds may not be
bought or helped through friendship or recommendation. 254.
This rule applies uniformly to all.
Even the Prophet himself says,
I fear,
if I defy my protector, I fear the punishment on that great day.
10:15,
9:13.
This uniqueness,
individuality
of the human personality, being responsible for one's one action, was the basis of the Prophet's announcement to non-Muslims. We have our deeds, you have yours.
139.
You will not be queried about our crimes, not will we be asked about your actions. 34:25.
For you, your deen, for us ours. 109:6. My actions are for me, yours for you. You
are not responsible for my actions nor I for
yours.
10:41.
Responsibility of action is only for the free-willed and never for the forced.
Even Allah doesn't interfere.
He just keeps a watch. Allah sees your actions. 2.
237.
He knows them. 2.
234. No action can go unnoticed by him.
Opening parenthesis. 2.
144.
Even, Allah knows what is in your hearts. 2.
235.
Allah watches your actions, means that no action can escape the law of returns. Allah surrounds whatever you do.
3. 119.
That is why every responsibly action by man produces a reaction and every man has to bear the consequences of his actions. Tragedies and afflictions.
Chapter 5.
You must have come across routine events.
Like the following.
When a patient recovers, it is credited to the perseverance and skills of physicians. But failure of treatment is attributed to destiny, predetermined by Allah. Success in an academic examination is
credited to the diligence of the candidate, whereas failure is attributed to Allah.
A favorable verdict in a legal case is attributed to the brilliant skills of the counsel, but Allah is blamed in case of the contrary result. A male offspring is cause enough for celebrations in the family, but a baby girl draws sympathetic consoling remarks like, "What could you do? Allah wanted it so." Success due to oneself, failure due to Allah. Thus, man considers himself helpless and bound in case of failure but deems himself free of will in case of success. This mental attitude is the remnant of mankind's early days when, finding themselves helpless against certain natural phenomena, they began thinking of a supernatural power. Traditional religion has fed such ideas to this day through so-called sacred evidences, such as, "I know Allah exists because of failure of my plans." This saying is attributed to Ali, the Prophet's cousin and the fourth caliph. But it appears erroneous. In my opinion, it has come from one of the Sufis. Mystics. Oriental poetry, thriving on grief, affliction and despair, has painted the picture more bleak by verses such as, mysticism finally stamped this notion into a firm, established religious belief. Let us try to see the stance of Allah's deen in this regard. What is musibah? Commonly translated in Urdu as affliction or grief. The Arabic word, musibah, stems from the three-letter root, which carries the basic and intrinsic meaning of something descending to come to its resting place. Thus each and every occurrence or event may be termed as musibah. The Quran uses musibah, in contrast to hasana. 9:50. Meaning something pleasant. Hence the popular use of musibah, for an unpleasant event. The point to ponder is whether musayab, tragedies and afflictions, are caused by Allah or by man, individually or collectively. The Quran presents an elaborate reply. Musayab are caused by man's actions. Surah Shura says, "There is no tragedy which befalls you but as result of your own handiwork." 42:30. Surah Al-Imran states that when people are struck by an affliction, they wonder where it came from. Tell them, it is of your own doing. 164. Surah Nahl also says the same. Their own wrongdoing brought tragedy to them. 16:34. The reprieve, Allah's established procedure for bad actions, is that their consequences are not readily observable initially and take some time in materializing. This time gap is the grace period of reprieve.
In Surah
Az-Zumar,
it is stated that people who chose to go gleefully away from Allah's way, defying and ridiculing His laws, but in a little while what wrong they have done will bear result, and that divine law, which they are ridiculing now, will surround them. 39.
48. The Quran uses a very meaningful expression for this grace period of reprieve between an action and the subsequent result of it. It likens it to someone sending this result
on before he starts his own journey. Reaching the destination, one finds that result already waiting for the sender.
The Quran uses the expression, whatever their hands send on before.
Surah Al-Imran talks about Allah recording all the crimes committed which will bear results as life goes on, and they will be told, "This is what your hands sent on before." 3. 181 to 182. These results have also been referred to by the expression, i.e., those which have passed
this path before. 10.
30.
Surah Al-Hajj also uses the same expression in 22.
9 to 10.
Surah Al-Qasas states about the children of Israel,
Jews, that when they are faced with a bad situation, which they have themselves sent on before, they start moaning and complaining. 28.
47.
Also. 4.
62. Surah Rome talks about people's attitude of crediting success to themselves boastfully, but getting depressed and frustrated over tragedies which they have already sent on themselves before. 30.
36. It is repeated in 42.
49. Surah Al-Fajr states that faced with the ultimate destruction, man will call out in despair, "Only if I had sent something on for my life." 89. 24. This applies to tragedies and afflictions, as well as bounties and benefits. Surah Muzammil says, "Whatever good you send on for yourselves will be ready with Allah." 73. 20. The same phenomenon is also referred to as whatever their selves send on for them. 5. 80. The Quran holds man's personality, self, responsible for his actions, since it is the seat of his power of choice and free will. That is why it says, self, the human personality, should keep an eye on what it sends on for tomorrow, the future. 59. 18. About realization of results it says, self will come to know what it sent on or left behind. 82. 5. Because we write down what they send on and what they leave behind. 36. 12. And that everything is registered in a clear book which is always walking ahead of them. 36. 12. Thus, all tragedies and afflictions are brought upon man by himself, individually or collectively. Surah Baqarah talks about the calamities befalling the children of Israel, saying, their tragedy was of their own doing. 2. 79. Because they were unfair and lawbreakers. 2. 59. Also. 2. 61. 3. 111. Ignominy and disgrace. In fact, Allah's universal law, that ignominy and disgrace are results of man's own actions, applies to anyone and all. When a nation chooses to ignore even a part of Allah's law, they are disgraced in this world and subject to severe punishment on the Day of Judgment. 2. 85. Also. 2. 114. 22. 9-10. Surah Al-Fajr states the same in a different way. When man is disgraced, he says, "Oh my God! You disgraced me for nothing." 89. 9-16. Allah replies that it is not true. Allah doesn't disgrace anyone. You have been disgraced by our own wrongdoing. You used to abandon the helpless of your society.
You had all the vices of a capitalistic economy. Such actions brought ignominy to you, not Allah.
Also 92. 4-10. Allah is not unfair.
The fact that Allah doesn't disgrace anyone without due cause.
One's own wrongdoing, as this is unfair, has been illustrated many times over in the Quran. Surah Al-Imran talks about the tyrants of society being eventually destroyed, and Allah is not unfair to them but they are unfair to themselves.
3:116.
Surah Tawbah, after speaking of destruction of the nations of the past, says, Allah did not treat them cruelly, but they brought it upon themselves.
9:70.
Also in 11:101, 16, 33 and 29.
40.
Surah Yunus states, Allah is not unfair to people in the slightest, but they do it to themselves. 10:44.
Allah is omnipotent and man is his weak and vulnerable
creation.
Allah's being cruel and unfair to man is inconceivable.
People bring tragedies to themselves by their own hands.
Allah is not cruel to his creatures.
22:10. In fact, Allah doesn't
even intend to be cruel to his people.
40:31.
He argues, why will Allah torture you if you accept
the validity of his laws, and show that you
are convinced
of their practical value?
4:147.
Allah is not a sadist.
In his domain, every decision is based upon the truth, and everyone gets the result of one's actions, and no one is wronged.
39:69-70.
About the time of man's actions bearing results, it says,
that day everyone will get what he worked for and no one will be wronged.
40:17. Also,
decisions will be taken justly and fairly and no one will be wronged.
10:47.
Also,
opening parenthesis.
10:54. 2 verses from An-Nisa.
In this regard, 2 verses from Surah An-Nisa are quite significant. Talking about the reverse mentality of a certain group of the Prophet's era, the Quran says, when they are in a pleasant situation, they attribute it to Allah, but blame the Prophet for their troubles. Tell them everything is from Allah's law.
4:78.
Further, it says, what is
wrong with them? They don't try to understand.
Remember, the pleasantness you get is from Allah and your troubles are from you yourselves. 4:79.
There is an apparent contradiction here.
One verse says the good and the bad all come from Allah, whereas the other verse appears to say the good is from Allah but the bad is from man.
The apparent contradiction can
actually be resolved thus.
All events good or bad occur according to natural Allah's laws.
Allah's law, if followed, shall bring good to you.
But
if you follow the path of your own choice,
other than Allah's,
the natural
result will be trouble.
Simply put, then, all events,
actions,
bear results predetermined by Allah's law. If one follows the natural,
Allah's suggested course, one benefits. Otherwise,
when one defies the divine law, the natural consequence is tragedy.
Therefore, all good is from Allah whereas evil is brought upon man by himself. This point shall be elaborated later in the book under a separate heading of good and evil. Misconceptions. We can conclude, therefore, that to attribute a tragedy to Allah is not only erroneous factually but is blaming Allah wrongfully. When people try to philosophize a tragedy by utterances like, man proposes and God disposes, his is all-powerful. He can do whatever, whenever he wants, only he knows why he does what he does, etc. They project an image of a lawless, irregular and unreasonable Allah, and all man's efforts and endeavors are futile and all events occur because of
a whimsical Allah.
This reduces man to a bound-will-less creature.
I shall deal with this point in some detail later in the book.
By chance.
It is true that
occasionally, an event has to be attributed to chance, as we cannot explain it, and an individual is sometimes beset with tragedy not directly attributable to the person concerned.
Sometimes, Allah's law appears to be working in the opposite direction, producing evil instead of good.
As in the case of an honest official who suffers in a dishonest society. As to chance, in
above, there can never be an effect without a cause in the universe.
But the cause has to be discovered by man.
During the early period of its history, mankind used to attribute, due to lack of knowledge, almost every phenomenon to chance. That has been changing through man's march of civilization.
Even today, certain uncivilized tribes in various parts of the world attribute certain phenomena to gods and goddesses.
It is not so any longer when scientific discoveries unravel the mysteries of nature.
This situation improves with every generation.
This ignorant state of affairs may be observed in certain sections of society even in the civilized world. As man moves forward in the realm of science, chance will give way completely to factual knowledge attained by mankind.
Man has the potential to discover the entire universe. 2:31.
Chance is nothing but lack of knowledge.
Individuals in an unfair society.
As to above, an individual is a part member of a society and, as such, is affected by it anyway. For example, a good harvest benefits even those not connected with farming at all. On the other hand, a bursting dam extends its damage even to those who have nothing at all to do with its construction or maintenance. This is why the Quran say, "Try to protect your society against a danger which is not restricted to the people responsible for it." 8:25.
Man behaves oddly in a society, benefiting from the good, facilities, benefits etc. One never refuses them on the grounds that one is not directly responsible for them.
On the other hand, however, one is always complaining about the badness of society for which, again, one is not directly responsible. This attitude is referred to in the Quran.
When man is enjoying our bounties, he turns away
arrogantly from Allah's law.
But when evil comes to him, he raises hue and cry.
17:83. It goes on to say, everyone works according to one's tether, therefore is directly or indirectly responsible for what happens in society.
The Quran gives a graphic illustration of this in Surah Sabah. The leaders and the led quarreling about, and blaming one another for, society's ills.
If you just imagine the time when the transgressors will be in Allah's presence blaming one another for their mistakes.
The led will say to the leaders, "But for your misleading leadership we would have followed Allah's laws." The leaders will say, "Why blame us?
We didn't stop you from following the right path.
You wronged of your own choice.
You blame us wrongly."
The led will say, "You crafted a society which kept us away from the right path. How can you escape responsibility?"
34:31-33.
But excuses of both will be rejected and punishment will come to them equally. 37:33. The leaders for their wrongdoing and the led for being their power base.
This then, is the Quran's view of an individual and society. A society is nothing but a collection of individuals who have the potential of enforcing change.
Please note that the Quran does not accept as valid the excuse of being helpless from free-willed man.
This very excuse brought upon Iblis the eternal punishment of being banished from benefits. It is perfectly possible, though, that individuals fail in their initial attempt to bring about change in their society. But this is very different from presenting helplessness as an excuse for an action. People who try are commended by Allah. 2:157.
Others will naturally go to hell.
4:97. Early Muslim history. This, therefore, is the Quran's position on social tragedies.
Social life. Collective existence.
Will be dealt with in more detail later in this book under Rise and Fall of Nations.
As long as Muslims kept in view this Quranic position, they faced problems logically, factually and on the basis of cause and effect.
The public would point out any flaws in administration and the officials would attend to them. Any difficulties on the social level were dealt with by improving the people's own individual or collective
behavior.
No one would blame problems on Allah or predetermined taqdeer, destiny.
A conspiracy. Later, the rulers grew more and more oppressive, which resulted in ever-increasing social ills, problems and tragedies. To avoid any public uprising against them, the rulers collaborated with the clergy. No pharaoh can claim to be the supreme provider without help from Haman, the clergy,
who began propagating the view that the rulers, their oppression and power, all social problems and individual tragedies etc., occur by the predetermined will of Allah and thus is unavoidable and is to be patiently accepted as fate.
Any dissent, even a mere thought of it, is going against the will of Allah is apostasy.
This propaganda through the years established as an article of the faith. Anti-Quranic
belief of
predestined
calamities as the will of Allah. Please remember, the Quran announces, "There is no calamity but brought upon you by your own hands."
42:30. Be it individual, like touching a flame, or collective as a dam giving way or the righteous suffering in a wrong society. This last point needs a little more elaboration.
Surah Maida says, "O the convinced people, keep a watch over yourselves. If you keep to the right path, the wrongdoers will not be able to bring any harm to you."
5:105. This verse reveals great truths. It says one will be safe from wrongdoers if one is on the right path.
But our experience is in contradiction of this. A righteous, honest person is conspired against, wronged, and harmed by the devious.
How, then, the Quran can claim what it does?
This requires some deliberation.
As stated previously, man has two levels of life.
One is physical, subject to natural physical laws. On this level, there is no distinction between the good and the bad people. A flame burns anyone, believer or non-believer alike. Poison kills both. Tilling land according to sound agricultural knowledge brings good harvest to everyone. Surah Beni Israel says, "Our law is that whoever desires the worldly benefits and strives for them according to our deliberately established natural laws, gets them. But the future for such a person is bleak and hellish. Contrarily, whoever desires benefits of both worlds, present and future, and strives for them accordingly, convinced of permanent values, gets good results in the present as well as the future."
Thus, both categories keep moving forward in life. Your provider does not deprive either of the two categories of the due result of their efforts.
17:18-26. That means the physical laws work equally for
both Muslims and non-Muslims. This is repeated in
42:20. This, therefore, is Allah's law on the physical level.
the other level of life, the human, is higher than the physical and is governed by permanent moral values. Living according to these values sustains and nourishes the human personality. Defiance of these values results in stalling the growth of the human personality. This is known as the future or the hereafter.
But, importantly, at this level both the physical and the human lives coexist.
In a righteous
Islamic social situation, both levels of life are duly looked after without any mutual clashes. Not so in a wrong, un-Islamic
social setup. These are clashes between the righteous people, convinced of the permanent values,
and the wrongdoers,
the unconvinced.
In such situations, the righteous do not like to give up permanent values in favor of the worldly benefits. That is why the righteous sometimes suffer on the physical life level.
But their personalities
remain protected.
105.
And the benefit and damage to the human personality can only be judged when weighed in Allah's balance of the law of returns. 105. Importance of material benefits. The Quran does not ignore the material side
of physical life, but considers it very important.
It says of a moments,
the convinced, righteous person,
life, good in the world and good in the hereafter.
210. The question to consider is
how to strike a balance between the two levels of life. That is the whole point of the Quranic program. The clash between a righteous and a materialistic person is termed as the clash between the right and the wrong.
When the righteous lose this battle, it is because they, in a wrongful society, exist as individuals whereas the materialists gang up. The Quran suggests the righteous get together and form an alliance against the wrongdoers.
This is not easy, though.
Clash of right and wrong.
It is a continual fight termed as jihad.
Surah Baqarah says,
"Do you hope to enter paradise effortlessly? You also, just as the righteous of yesteryears, have to go through crushing struggle."
They used to fight on and on under grueling circumstances, occasionally wondering when their efforts would bear fruit.
It was only then, after a long, sustained, crushing battle,
that they would be successful with Allah's help. Remember, you have to do likewise.
214.
As an example, the Quran speaks of the Battle of Azab.
During that awful time, you were surrounded by the enemy forces, you were frightened blind with your hearts pounding wildly and the not so convinced among you were beginning to doubt the validity of Allah's promises. Under such awesome circumstances, the convinced displayed their steadfastness in the face of problems. 33.
10-11. Such are the situations when the righteous face
physical damage and loss.
You will face war and killing, shortage of food, loss of life and property, damage to crops and orchards. But eventually, good news will come to the steadfast who constantly keep in view their target of replacing the wrong evil system with the right good one.
They say, "We are devoted to this cause. Regardless of problems and difficulties, we will keep striving to achieve that goal by moving towards that target." 155-156. Obviously, one needs, along with steadfastness, material equipment. That is why it says, "Be ready to defend your borders." 8:60. On a battlefield, the righteous suffer from a technical mistake just as any other fighting force. One very illustrative example from Muslim history is the Battle of Uhud, where the Muslims were defeated, incurring heavy losses, and the Prophet, after being injured, had to be rescued. For such occasions, the Quran comforts the righteous. Why worry over your problems? Your opponents also face them. 4.
104. These universal laws apply to all mankind.
3. 139.
If the righteous come out victorious, they establish a just society in which 5.
105.
Becomes practically operative, and so does 2.
210.
Those who die before the establishment of such as a social system suffer in this world and life, but their life in the hereafter is enviable.
They are called, killed in Allah's path, and they are to be considered alive and
shall live forever. 2. 154. This success, however, comes with man's own effort, which bears fruit in a collective social form of life of a nation. I shall deal with this point in the next chapter. Tolui-Islam Trust 25B, Gulberg 2, Lahore, Pakistan. Tolui-Islam@gmail.com